Are you trying to conceive? When you're in the process of baby making, you don't want to take a prenatal that's designed for a woman who's pregnant. They get expensive and have ingredients you don't need quite yet. Theranatal Core is a prenatal focused on women who are trying to conceive. It contains the active form of folic acid, folate, as well as 2,000 IUs of vitamin D. Also, it doesn't have any expensive ingredients that you don't need until you're pregnant. Theralogix' prenatal Theranatal Core is especially for women with PCOS who are in the process of baby making. Check the link in the description for our 15% off code.
All right, babe, let's take a moment to correct our posture, take a deep breath, and have some pure spectrum CBD.
Sure. Hey sisters, CBD can help with acne, inflammation, anxiety, sleep, and so many other PCOS symptoms. I personally take it throughout the day to help keep my stress hormones nice and low. Not to mention, I sleep like a baby every night and I don't wake up fatigued at all.
Now open your mouth, please, so I can give you a serving.
Ah.
Now hold it for 60 seconds. Head over to purespectrumcbd.com and use the code THESISTERHOOD, one word, for 10% off.
Can I stop now?
Nope, you got 30 more seconds.
Doctor said you got PCOS. Now go on, girl, just lose some weight. Till I took the symptoms into my own hands and reversed them naturally. So I became a dietitian to help my sisters feel the best they've ever felt. Take a step in my direction if you wanna prove them wrong and take control of yourself. Join a sister and a mister.
And go.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of A Sister and Her Mister. Today we have Megan Joyce. She is the lead acupuncturist and founder of Joyce Wellness. She naturally reversed her own infertility due to PCOS, and as a result has 2 children who are her pride and joy. Megan believes the most powerful form of healing is achieved by addressing the person on addressing the person on every level. Mind, body, and spirit. She graduated summa cum laude from Emperor's College of Oriental Medicine and received advanced training in gynecology and internal medicine at the Zhejiang University in Hangzhou, China. She is a fellow of the American Board of Reproductive Medicine and has helped hundreds of individuals and couples to grow their families. She works closely with doulas, midwives, and OBGYNs to provide integrative prenatal and postpartum care. Welcome, Megan.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you, especially someone with your expertise. And we've heard of acupuncture having so many benefits. And one thing that we've heard constantly, and especially I heard this from Tallene with her experience, was how much it helped with regulating her periods. I mean, I know we're going to really get into acupuncture today, but I guess let's start with, could you share your PCOS journey with us and what led you to acupuncture?
I would love to. I think my journey hasn't necessarily been unique. I think a lot of sisters start off with a lot of confusion, right? When I was in high school and in college, I just was suffering. I was dealing with regular panic attacks and really severe depression. I had irregular periods or no periods, missing periods for months or even years at a time. I had really severe acne. I really battled with my weight. And so I was going to all of these different specialists. I went to a psychiatrist who put me on so many different medications, and everything just made me feel worse, or the side effects, the effect of the medication would be even worse than the anxiety. It would make me feel dead to the world. And I saw my OBGYN who said, okay, you're one of the people who has irregular periods. You just need to go on the pill. And so I did, and I tried multiple different pills, ended up with a terrible clotting disorder, which was terrifying. I passed a tennis ball, TMI, but tennis ball size clot in the middle of a calculus final.
Wow.
I thought I was dying. And so it really wasn't until I was 22 and I finally saw an endocrinologist who diagnosed me with PCOS. And she said, look, this is something you're going to have for the rest of your life. The only option is to go on birth control. At that time, metformin wasn't even really, this was over 20 years ago. So metformin wasn't even really discovered yet for PCOS. And she said, and when you're ready, you won't be able to conceive children on your own. So when you're ready, we'll just go to IVF or fertility treatments. And I was devastated
Mhm.
and so terrified. And I have a little bit of a rebellious spirit. And so I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I want to do something else. And by that point, I had already switched from a pre-med major to a biopsychology major,
Mhm.
and had already started doing acupuncture and just receiving it as a patient. And I noticed that my periods started coming more regularly, and it had been a couple months since my last panic attack. And so at that point, I totally switched gears and ended up going to Emperor's College for traditional Oriental medicine, or traditional Chinese medicine, and study holistic medicine. And so for me, it was really empowering. It was confusing for a long time because I didn't have a lot of guidance, but I really changed my entire life, not only in terms of career, but in terms of how I was able to engage with my body in a way that I didn't feel um, burdened by my body. I didn't feel imprisoned by this body that was making me sick. Like, I really learned how to utilize PCOS as a way of moving forward and
Yeah.
facilitating health and peace. So yeah, it ended up being a blessing in disguise.
Yeah,
I
that's
love
amazing to hear.
that.
I mean, Eastern medicine does have it combines a lot of different ways to, like, help with your health that sometimes Western medicine doesn't really look into, like a lot of diet, lifestyle approaches, a lot of, herbal medicine, a lot of these things that I believe, Western medicine overlooks sometimes, and more, it goes towards more, prescriptions and things like that. So I really, I love how you studied more of that approach to help, the Eastern medicine approach to really help with health.
What an interesting factoid is that, this medicine is 3,000 to 5,000 years old. We're not exactly sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
But in the olden days, the physicians were only paid as long as their patients were well. If
Mhm.
the patients got sick, then that was kind of considered a failure, and they had to use interventions. And so what did they do to keep their patients sick? They used the three pillars of health, which are movement, so exercise and different energy movements like Qigong or Tai Chi. They
Mhm.
used nutrition, which is, I think, the foundation of everything,
Yeah.
and then meditation. And so those were the three pillars to keep people healthy. And then if someone got sick, then we had these other interventions like acupuncture, herbal medicine. And then, throughout the generations, it's evolved to also include, now I utilize a lot of supplements, and I utilize a lot of Western testing to kind of see what's going on, but then holistic approach to treat it.
Yeah. I mean, those three
That's
things
great.
sound simple too, but to, like, be really good at movement, be really good at diet, and then be really good at with meditation. If you can do all three, I feel like most people will be super healthy just
Exactly.
overall as a
Yeah,
being, but of course, life gets more complicated. Sometimes we can't meditate, we can't move as much as we want to, but I feel just to encapsulate those three things into your life as much as possible can really help.
absolutely. And it can't be perfect. I mean, we do live in a very complicated world where there's just a barrage of overstimulation and a lot of stress and a lot of toxins in our environment and toxins in our food. And if we worried about everything and tried to be perfect about everything, then we would stop before we even start. So
Mhm.
I really take a very gentle approach, and try to just meet each person where he or she is at, and really just make incremental changes so that it feels good rather than overwhelming.
Yeah.
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 Well, acupuncture being one of those amazing lifestyle changes. Let's launch into that. So, a lot of the women listening right now maybe haven't tried acupuncture and are probably intimidated by it, like I was when I was looking into it before I had started. And so, my questions before I started acupuncture were typically, does it hurt? What is it? How does it help? Like, can you demystify
Yeah.
acupuncture for our
And
audience?
yeah, and I think most people, like the lay person may think, oh, just be needles going into the skin, right? Like that's what most people picture in their minds, but we love to really know like what more is happening and stuff.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, I think that to answer your first question, does it hurt? No,
Yeah.
acupuncture does not hurt. The needles that we use really shouldn't be called needles. My husband's like, you guys need to rebrand them as stimulators. And I think it's a
Oh,
really good point because they're really tiny, surgical, steel, disposable. So it's very, very safe.
Mhm.
Needles or probes or stimulators, but they're about the thickness of a hair on your head. So, the needles that we know of in terms of injections or blood draws, we can fit usually about 10 of our needles inside just the little tiny hole within a hypodermic needle. So they're
Wow.
tiny. And what they're doing, well, to explain what they're doing, I might back up a little bit just to give a little bit of the basics of Chinese medicine, which is that, thousands of years ago, they were trying to figure out, okay, well, what's going on when someone gets sick? And what they noticed was that, they noticed that our bodies are really governed by energy. And so the energy is what connects all of our organ systems. It's what connects the different parts of the body. And so usually if things go awry, the way that we could adjust that is by adjusting the energy between the different organ systems, because everything has to work harmoniously.
Mhm.
And so if the energy either gets stuck or if it's too deficient or if it's moving in a way that it's not supposed to, then they wanted to address that. And so what's a great conductor of energy? Well, metal. So they would use these tiny, well, at the time, actually, they weren't that tiny, but now we use these tiny little needles that are electroconductors of energy, and it
Mhm.
helps to move that energy so that it can allow that communication between the different organ systems. It allows that free flow of qi. Qi is
Mhm.
the term for energy that we use.
Mhm.
So that was the explanation thousands of years ago, and it stood the test of time. Well, why? So now with functional MRIs and PET scans, we now know that it's working on the nervous system by upregulating the parasympathetic nervous system, or the like rest, digest, and reproduce response. It helps to lower inflammatory cytokines.
Mhm.
It helps to create a pain relieving response through what's called like the gate reflex, where the brain kind of gets stimulated to create more endogenous opioids, our natural painkillers, and block the pain sensations going to the brain.
Mhm.
It helps to improve blood circulation. It helps to improve metabolic activity. So these are all things, as far as PCOS is concerned, these are all really beneficial for supporting general health, right?
Right.
But then there's also great studies over the years. There's a lot of specific studies for PCOS about what more specifically acupuncture can do. So we can help specifically with improved blood flow to the ovaries and to the uterus. We can help to reduce circulating androgens, so the male factor hormones like testosterone and DHEAS. It helps to reduce sort of the pro-clotting behavior in women who have PCOS. So that happens by reducing fibrinogen and different enzymes that are involved in clotting and excessive blood clotting. So there's a lot of different things that are very specific, like the general support of
Yeah.
someone who has PCOS, but then also very, very specific to someone who has PCOS as well.
Yeah, it's me.
I'd say especially blood sugar control too, to add that in, because I remember having a lot of insulin resistance and going to acupuncture and that really helping with blood sugar control. And then as a result of all of these great hormonal health things that it can help with, it helped me lose weight too. It improved my metabolism and like promoted weight loss with PCOS.
I remember you used to tell me too how it was helping with like period cramps and like bloating and
Yeah.
things, like even if you were like a few days late, just going to acupuncture would just like help bring it on the next day or that same day.
The next day.
Absolutely. So that's what's kind of cool, is that we can work both with the macro view of the body, helping with all these general things that help to support the body to work and to heal itself, but then also by sort of manipulating certain hormones, we can help to bring on a cycle if someone is late. We can help to induce ovulation with certain protocols. Definitely blood sugar control. And then also when people get pregnant, we also do specific protocols to support fertility treatments when patients are doing that, but then also in pregnancy, helping to reduce rates of miscarriage, on to when they're ready to have their baby to help induce labor. So
Yeah.
there are a lot of really specific things that can be so helpful.
Yeah.
So where you place the needles change. Well, when I went, it was different every time. It just like depended. Sometimes it was a front treatment. Sometimes I'd lay on my front and it was a back treatment. How do you know like where to place the needles and like how that's going to affect what hormone? I mean, I'm sure you studied all of this, but can you break
Yeah.
some of it down for us? Like sometimes it's like more, she would put like more all over my head or more all over my ovaries, like, or on my feet. I don't know.
So the way that I work in most acupuncturists is that when we do an evaluation, we kind of figure out what your base constitution is, areas that your body is naturally weaker or areas where your body naturally stores excess. And so usually there will be a couple points that we will do to address that constitution at every single treatment. Now we have hundreds of points on the body. So we could say, for example, if we're doing points to support blood sugar control, there are points on the front of the body that we could do to do that. And there's points on the back of the body that we could use to address that. And so depending on where you are in your cycle, what acute triggers are going on, if you've been dealing with maybe an acute cold, or you have an incredible amount of stress that you're under right now, or you strained your back while lifting something too heavy. We want to be able to do constitutional change and support, but also address where your body is at today or this week. And so we'll adjust the points that we use. So for example, you mentioned like a lot of points on the head. Well, one can imagine that the points on the head are probably going to have more to do with psycho-emotional relief or things like headaches, or sinus pressure, things that are going on a little bit more in the head. One of the areas that is different though in the head is the ear, which is a microsystem for the whole body. So, and there are certain forms of acupuncture where people won't do any acupuncture points in any part of the body because you can literally treat every single organ, every single limb, every single part of the body just using the ear.
Wow.
And that's called auricular acupuncture. And that's used a lot more in emergency settings. So detox or rehabilitation clinics. It's used in battlefields. So for warriors in war who are needing some immediate relief for some sort of injury. And so that's kind of fascinating, I think, that the whole body can be influenced just by the ear because the vasovagal nerve, which connects the entire body, basically it innervates the entire ear.
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea.
Pretty cool.
Because my friend had vasovagal like overstimulation and she kept fainting from like anxiety or I don't know, it would like randomly happen. And so she would have to really focus on de-stressing and being calm, but I didn't know it was an ear thing.
Well, so it's not necessarily an ear thing because the vasovagal nerve is throughout the entire body. But for her, if I was treating her, not only would we do regular acupuncture, but I would do acupuncture in her ear. And then there's also things called ear seeds, which are either little seeds or little gold balls or stainless steel balls that are on a tiny clear adhesive, like a Band-Aid basically. And so we can stimulate these different points to regulate for long periods of time. You can wear them for up to 5 days after a treatment. And so then that's giving a little bit of like low dose acupuncture for an extended period of time using the ear.
Oh, wow. Because it's metal. So it makes like energy.
Yes. And with acupuncture, you've probably heard of acupressure.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is that these specific points on the body have specific energetic properties. And so we can activate it through acupuncture with the needles or just with pressure. And so we can use, our hands, or we can use an acupressure tool, or in this case, just the pressure of the little ball or seed on the area can stimulate the same effect.
Wow.
Very, very interesting.
I'm so into this. We are coming next week.
I know. A lot of it is very similar to integrative medicine. I always say this.
Integrative
medicine, because with that, it's very clear that different organs, different muscles in the body affect other organs, other muscles in the body. Like if one organ is not healthy, it's going to affect other organs down the line. And it sounds very similar to your explanation of how, the ear is affecting energy levels throughout the body. So it's very, very interesting. I hope we get to try this very soon.
Great.
And see for myself. But I mean, talking about how you treat differently, like, so when a patient with PCOS walks in, what would be your main focus during the treatment, and like how do you go about it, and like what are some of the benefits that person would see, after a day or so of that treatment?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I was doing a new patient visit with someone with PCOS, we would spend a lot of time talking. I mean, an hour, just going through their whole medical history, any traumas, what kind of symptoms they have, what lab testing has been done. I get a really full picture, and I'm going to be looking at things both on the physical body, but also on the mental, emotional body. So like I said, either previous traumas or current stressors, because I really want to have an idea of where she is at the current moment.
Yeah.
All of these things get taken into account. We would then do something that's very unique to Chinese medicine. A part of our diagnosis is to look at the tongue. And so we look at the color of the tongue, we look at the consistency of the coating on the tongue. We look at all of these different factors, and it can tell us a wealth of information about how digestion is functioning, what's going on with hormones. It's, a muscle that we can actually look at. And so we can see how blood and body fluids are perfusing the muscles in the body. So I'll take a really detailed notes about how the tongue looks, and then I'll also feel her pulse. And pulse diagnosis is different than in Western medicine, because usually we just pay attention to the rate. Is it fast? Is it slow? Is it skipping beats? But we actually do very detailed pulse diagnosis, where we're looking at 3 different locations on each wrist in 3 different places, 3 different depths. And it tells us different things about the different organ systems in the body, how chi or energy is circulating through those different organ systems, and then also the level of blood and fluids. And so I'll do a really detailed pulse diagnosis, take good notes. And then depending on their comfort level, I'll do like a little demonstration if someone is really kind of nervous about needles. And then they'll get to lay down. We have really soothing music. It's very much like a spa experience. Do a few needles, and then they get to take a nap for 20 to 30 minutes. The needles in, we call it cooking. And this is the time that it takes for an entire circulation of energy throughout the body. It's approximately 28 minutes. And so during that time, people usually fall into a deep sleep. I will often come in and people will be snoring. It creates a really deeply meditative state, which allows for deep rest, a strong increase of that parasympathetic nervous system, like I mentioned, and then also that anti-inflammatory response, a really regulation and a communication between the different organ systems. Wow. And so usually once I come in and I pull the needles, people are like relaxed.
Yeah.
And we'll walk out what we call getting acu-stoned. It like so a little high.
I feel relaxed just listening to this. Like I can picture
right
myself
now.
in the dark with things inside me, and then I wake up with it. I'm like, oh, I already feel relieved hearing the process.
It is deeply relaxing. And I think that that's what people don't understand, is they think it's going to be painful. They think it's something that they're going to have to like suffer through for the benefit, and it's the exact opposite. It's really deeply restorative, and we try to also meet each person where they're at. So if someone has no issues with the needles, they're feeling great, we might use more needles. If someone is a little bit nervous, I might start with only 4 points in a treatment. Let them get comfortable. It's enough to see the effect, get some benefit, but also just give like the psyche and the intellect a little time to catch up with what's happening.
Yeah.
I would feel like I went to heaven and came back like during the appointment. And like, I'll never forget the way I would fall asleep, or not like I wouldn't fall into like a deep slumber. It was like a half sleep, half awake type of thing, but like floating on a cloud in heaven type of thing. Like it's
We call
just,
it an alpha state. It's a different
yeah,
level of consciousness that is
yeah,
very meditative and also very healing. And so sometimes people will get these really beautiful images or visuals, and they'll have like a moment of reflection that will be like an aha moment, like, oh, this is what I'm doing wrong at work, or oh, this is something that I've been having, this is an issue that has been a problem with my husband, and I'm now seeing kind of a way forward or a way to talk to him about it.
yeah.
And so it's very much a mind body medicine in that way.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And wouldn't you agree that the first time isn't always like that, like we've
True.
explained? Because I felt like it was the second or third appointment that really got me on the cloud,
Hmm. I could see
stoned or
that.
whatever.
Actually, so the one of the things that I like to liken it to is diet and exercise, or let's just say exercise.
Yeah.
So if you were to decide, like, okay, I want to go on a weight loss plan, or I'm trying to be more healthy, I'm gonna exercise. I'm gonna exercise one time, and then the next morning you go on the scale and you're like, it didn't work. I didn't lose weight. It's something that is cumulative because one, it's a very gentle approach. We're not using a medication that is taking over your physiology. We're gently supporting the body's natural physiology, and then
Yeah.
and the body's natural desire to heal. I really believe in that.
Yeah.
And two, it's synergistic. So the treatments build off of each other. And so often, it's not that often that someone will fall asleep the first time. Usually it's like after the third, fifth time, 10th time, and they're getting into these deep meditative states. And that's also
Mm.
when the real shift starts to happen.
Yeah. And also I'm sure the first time you're a little bit tense, you're not as
You're
comfortable
like
because
Yeah,
stressed about the
yeah,
needles.
it's change is weird and
yeah,
it's kind of scary. And so
yeah. I can
usually people are more in their head.
Yeah, I can almost relate it to a float tank. Like those water tanks you go in the dark and you
Oh,
float inside
I
because
love those.
we did the first time we did
I've
it, it
heard them.
was like really hard to relax. It's 1 hour. It was so hard to relax the first like 55 minutes. And then the last 5 minutes was amazing, like
Yeah.
very relaxed. And so the next time you go, you start being relaxed from the get-go and just like knowing how to get into it and be comfortable. So I'm sure it's similar too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we stop getting in our own way. The
Yeah.
brain is a wonderful, powerful tool, but it will get in our way. And
Yeah.
so sometimes we need to get really comfortable before the brain will turn off and we can just be in an experience and really benefit from it.
Yeah. Amazing.
Afterwards, it almost felt like the problems that I had before the acupuncture session were distant, and like the anxieties were like, well, it's not that bad anymore. Like it was an amazing mindset shift of anxiety, of restructuring your mindset around something that can trigger anxiety and just feeling like it's 10 feet away instead of right in front of you. And you're like,
Yeah.
not a big deal.
And sometimes I think the experiences that people have can be surprising. So the first time when I first tried acupuncture, I was still in pre-med. I wanted to be an OBGYN. I was very clinically and Western medically minded. And
Mhm.
so I was dubious. And my mother, bless her, was like, just try it. And so I had actually been studying for a final and was so stressed, and I slept on my neck wrong, and I woke up and I could not move my neck. And so I got in with an acupuncturist to treat this neck pain, and I
Mhm.
burst into tears on the table. I just burst into tears, and I cried probably for 20 minutes on the table. And it was just this relief of all of this emotional,
Wow.
stuff going on in my personal life. I was
Yeah.
stressed with finals, and it was just this release. And I walked out of there and I was like, whoa, I was not expecting that. And that's also one of the things that I love about this is that sometimes it works in ways that you're not expecting. Like
Mhm.
you go in just expecting to regulate your periods or to help with hormone dysregulation due to PCOS, but then it also creates these other benefits. Like all of a sudden you realize,
Yeah.
oh, wow, I didn't even realize I was having daily headaches. They
Yeah.
were so great. And now they're just gone. And now I realize, or I didn't realize how bad my sugar cravings were. And now I just like, I haven't even really been thinking about it.
Yeah.
So that's a really fun part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And releasing the tension that's building up day after day that you don't even see, like from work, from school, it just builds up. And then one day you go like you did, and then you just like release it all, you cry,
Yeah,
and it feels good.
yeah, it
One,
does.
there was one time where I went and I was super stressed out, like the most stressed I'd ever been. And I actually like it relaxed me. And that relaxation feeling was so unfamiliar to me at that moment because I had been so stressed out for so long that I felt like I was going to die because I was like relaxing finally. You know that feeling? I don't know. Like my mom said it happened to her too. And this was around the time we were wedding planning. So
Oh, which is so
we
stressful.
were like, we thought we were going to die on the table.
Oh
Like,
my God.
we both told each other this after the appointment. But it wasn't because like it triggered anxiety. It was because it relaxed us and we were already so high up on the stress level.
That's hilarious.
We get used to it. We get used to it. And then anything else can feel so uncomfortable because it's different.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
get that. I get that.
So before we finish up, I just wanted to ask, how can other people find you to work with you one-on-one, or maybe find you online? Do you have any resources for people to share you? Sorry, to find you at?
Yes, of course. So my website is joycewellness.com. My last name, Joyce, wellness.com. And I'm on Instagram at Joyce Wellness Group. Facebook is Joyce Wellness, and yeah, we are currently doing a combination of in-person treatment for acupuncture, but then also because Chinese medicine incorporates so many other things like herbal medicine, supplements,
Yeah.
helping to support things like what you guys are doing with a gluten-free and dairy-free lifestyle. I mean, that's hard for some people to do, but it is transformative. And like
Yeah.
I said, it's part of the 3 pillars of health. So that piece is really huge. And so I help coach people through that as well. And so that can also be done via telemedicine. So
Is
Amazing.
especially
that,
with COVID.
is that
Amazing.
something you talk about with your patients as well, going gluten and dairy free?
Yes. Okay. So diet is a huge part of my practice, and I have a couple different pieces of that puzzle. I'm a really big advocate for cycle syncing, so choosing different types of foods at different phases of the cycle to get the micronutrients that you need for your menstrual phase, your follicular phase, which is before ovulation, ovulatory, and then the luteal phase, which would be after ovulation. So I do that work with patients.
Mhm.
I Yes, gluten and dairy free is huge, both for blood sugar regulation, also for the anti-inflammatory properties.
Mhm.
You know, we in Chinese medicine, if you come in with PCOS, that is in the back of our head, but we're still doing a holistic diagnosis. And so 5 different women with PCOS could have completely different constitutional diagnoses.
Yeah.
And so I tailor the nutritional guidance to each person, but most of them, if they can go gluten and dairy free, I really, really push it, because for all of those different body types and constitutional types, gluten and dairy are typically going to be triggers. And so
Mhm.
it's going to be so much harder. We can do all of the acupuncture in the world. You might see some improvements, but you're really not going to see the transformative change until the nutrition is there. And I will say, because I know you guys are all very strictly gluten and dairy free, for the people who are maybe struggling, because I do work with a lot of women who have histories of eating disorders. I battled with eating disorders through my teens and 20s. And so sometimes if I go too big into restriction in the beginning, it can feel
Yeah.
very triggering. And so one of the things that I have found to be a good, like, kind of way to cut corners in the beginning, if you're really struggling, is to at least cut out cow dairy, but keep
Mhm.
in a little bit of sheep or goat milk dairy. That
Mhm.
can make the transition a little bit less triggering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For those that might be struggling going full way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But yes, it's a big part of our practice.
That's
awesome.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm a registered dietitian. So when patients came, when I did one-on-one, I wouldn't suggest it for every single patient, because if you do have an eating disorder, it might not be for you. And just given the nature of our brands and how we're on Instagram and stuff, we can't filter who's following us. So if someone is struggling with an eating disorder, they should get one-on-one attention. And that's great that you ease them into it.
Yeah, that's basically how we like to do it, to like ease into gluten-free first or dairy-free first. And if you're doing one or the other, do it one day at a time with specific meals instead of like trying to, jump into it all at once. So definitely do that.
Because some people can do it and other people it's so overwhelming that then they just stop before they even get started.
Yeah.
And that's one of my biggest passion projects, is not making health and wellness so overwhelming or so perfect that it's not accessible to everybody. So I really believe that we can kind of meet each person where he or she is at.
Yeah,
absolutely.
By the way, do you have a protocol for helping with adrenal fatigue? Because I feel like in my early 20s, I really just used up my adrenal glands because of drinking so much coffee and stuff in my early 20s. So I was just wondering, in the future, if I could help heal that up.
Absolutely. So, in Chinese medicine, we would never call it adrenal fatigue. We would call it liver qi stagnation, or we have a very different vocabulary in Chinese medicine, but it all means something in Western medicine.
Yeah.
I'm actually finishing my certification for functional medicine through the Kalish Institute. And really, the first thing that we look at with patients is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, so the HPA axis, which a lot of people call adrenal fatigue, but there's different stages. So sometimes you're in fatigue, but sometimes your cortisol levels are just through the roof, so that's not yet fatigued.
Yeah.
So that is a big part of the way that we work. And if, because it's, once again, customized, each person is at a different level of HPA dysregulation. But if there were certain things that I would recommend that would work for everyone, consistency is really great. If your adrenals are dysregulated, those would be patients who would not be a good fit for things like intermittent fasting, where there's irregularity in your eating. You want to be eating more regular meals, sleeping at the same time. Earlier in the evening is better. So, 10 to 6, 10 to 7.
Yeah.
Not changing the times that you wake up. And then the other thing that is so amazing is just getting early morning sunshine. And so I think one of your previous guests, Dr. Gersh, he talked about this a lot in more detail, but without going into the detail of the light receptors in the eye, just if someone is recognizing that they're feeling that wired and tired, they're stressed but exhausted and then can't sleep at night, that's classic signs of HPA dysregulation. And so limiting the caffeine, regulating everything you can, sleeping, eating, exercise, and then turning off any sort of screens a couple hours before you go to sleep. And then first thing in the morning, get outside, do a 5-minute meditation. You want as much of your body to be exposed to sunlight, to get that vitamin D. But just first thing in the morning, because when you wake up, your cortisol is supposed to peak within about 30 minutes. And then it's supposed to gradually decrease throughout the day so that it's nice and low when it's time for bed.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is that people are either skyrocketing first thing in the morning because they're getting on their phones and they're getting an email that sends them into fight or flight at 7 o'clock in the morning, or they're just dragging because their cortisol never really peaks appropriately and then stays kind of the same level, so that then at nighttime, when it's supposed to be nice and low, it's still at the same level. And so you have too much cortisol circulating at that point, so you can't get good restful sleep.
Amazing information. Amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. And we talk about the 4 types of PCOS. We talk about inflammation, insulin resistance, adrenal fatigue, hyperthyroidism. And we just, during this episode, we just talked about all the different ways acupuncture could help with all of those types. So
absolutely.
Yeah, it's really, really information, I think, for the sisters listening. If you have any one of those types, and you're struggling to reverse those symptoms, going to an acupuncture like Megan can really help. And yeah, this was amazing.
Yes, I can't wait to schedule an appointment. Your office is in Costa Mesa, right?
Costa Mesa, yes.
Awesome. Perfect. And then just if you could one more time share with us where people can reach you. We're gonna put it in the podcast description, so anyone interested, please head there. But if you could just share with us one more time.
Sure. It's joycewellness.com. So JOYCE wellness.com, or at Joyce Wellness Group on Instagram are the best places.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. So much fun.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
And we hope to see you soon in your office when we get our session done.
Yes.
You too.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Talk to you soon, sisters.
Bye-bye. See you next week.
Bye. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come check out The Sisterhood. It's my monthly membership site where sisters just like you are learning how to move through the stages of PCOS. From stage 1, cold and alone at the doctor's office, to stage 5, nailing the PCOS lifestyle, gluten and dairy free. Get ready to finally feel in control of your body again.